Thank you.
Morning, Joe.
Morning.
I said I'd log on early. Have we got any idea what the numbers are like?
29 have registered.
Oh, fabulous. Did that all come after Gavin posted?
No, only 2 came after Gavin posted.
Okay. His influence is waning.
Yeah. Well, most of that was all before, so yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Morning, Mark.
Good.
And we're up to 29 have registered.
Okay, great. That's good.
I made you a co-host already and we're recording, so.
Okay. Perfect. So I've got all my slides all set to go. And I think Gavin's all set too. He joins.
That's useful because he's swamped implementing a new. I thought Trust Call was already live, but they're in the middle of it all.
We're going. Yeah. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Great.
Yeah, nice day to be inside, right?
Oh, yeah, the dogs were very wet.
You guys are, I'm in Texas right now. You guys are getting the rain that we got yesterday. We had some thunderstorms. But I said I didn't lose the internet once, and then my first meeting of the morning today, I lost my internet. So,
Yeah, I've already made Mark and Lisa co-hosts, so if anything happened to my internet, then, you know, the meeting keeps running, so there's no worries there, so. Morning, Gavin.
Okay, can people hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Oh, good.
Welcome.
Okay, it's fixed.
Hey, Margie.
Hey, Gavin. Hey, Mark and Darrell.
Good morning.
Hey, I have a question that you have an open forum at the end of this. Somehow I didn't register for this. So I was like, whoa, wait a second. So, um, uh, there's one thing that some of you deal with manufacturing. There's one thing that we are constantly plagued with, and that is the ability to figure out what a product will cost. And we don't use demand planning. We used average costs. I guess we don't use standard cost, and we used average cost. And when you have to figure out what to charge for a product for the next year, it's like, you know, how do you figure that out other than doing an assembly build? Because that's not the last purchase price. That's just an average cost. So you know, I'm hoping maybe there's an open forum at some point in this where people can say how they're dealing with that.
Sounds a good idea to me.
Yeah, we do have
Pardon?
a question at the end. So that's all of our meetings that's how we end the meetings off, with bring a question. And yeah, this meeting is all focused on manufacturing and distribution.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Lisa.
Morning.
We see like a half of your face.
I know.
Maybe that's on purpose. You notice you don't see me live.
I'm multitasking.
Darrell has the best chair, though. Oh my goodness.
Yes, one of the gaming chairs. So
Nice.
company up in Richmond Hill, they're just absolutely fantastic. You're sitting long hours in a chair all day. There's nothing better you can buy on the market.
Who makes it? Because I am looking for a new chair.
Yeah, and a seat, AND, you can see it sort of there. ANDA, yeah, and better ranked than like anything you'll ever find at a Staples or whatever. So lumbar support, so forth.
Hmm.
Okay, we have lots coming in now. We've had quite a few register for today, so should have a good turnout.
You're welcome. Just a couple of little LinkedIn posts, and I'll take all the credit. Or some of the credit. Or none, whatever.
Good morning, everyone. It's Mohammed Butt.
Morning.
Although some of my friends at NetSuite reposted my post, which was nice.
Yeah, we've got about 30 pre-register, so
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like 10 more than 2 days ago, wasn't it? Something like that.
so it's come up nicely. And of course, this one is all very focused on distribution and manufacturing. So there are some type of members that, you know, have nothing to do with that area and aren't attending, but so it should be very focused for the people attending.
We have a couple more minutes and then we'll get started.
Yeah, so Chris called me yesterday Chris Knapp, because the person who was meant to be doing the DDMRP presentation was he wasn't sure if they were going to make it or not, so so
I'm
he'll be
here,
here.
Gavin.
Are you here? There you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I have great internet, but
Okay.
I'm here.
Cool. He called me yesterday. He's like, is it 10 o'clock? Am I on first or? I was like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
You know, I told him I'll be on this one.
There you go. I'm actually a certified demand-driven planner, so well, I was. It's probably lapsed though. I'm sure you probably have to retake it.
If I lose internet, I'll send you my presentation.
I'll just if you lose internet, I'll just ad lib. How's that?
Perfect.
All right, why don't we get started? We've got 21 people in the meeting now. I think we'll probably see another 10 or so join. Welcome all. So yeah, this is our winter session. Sorry about the delay a few weeks ago. We just wanted to make sure that everything was ready for a great presentation, and we had a great audience as well. So I wanted to thank our meeting sponsor, Demand Driven Technologies, and Brittany is going to do the presentation today. Why don't I go right into our agenda here today? So I'm going to do a bit of a welcome. I think I have a couple of slides. Then we're going to talk. This focus is around manufacturing and distribution vertical. And this is what we're going to try to do moving forward for the rest of the meetings in 2023. Pick a vertical and do a little bit more of a deeper dive within that vertical. So Gavin is going to do the manufacturing distribution module, and I'm going to help him out with a little bit of that and some of the things Danby's doing. And Demand Driven is going to give their presentation, and we're going to do a customer spotlight on Danby appliances. So I'd love to do a deep dive on what we're doing, and you'll see that customer spotlight. This is something we want to continue and repeat. So, and not just our board members, but any of our members within the group can be a customer spotlight and talk a little bit more about what we're doing in NetSuite. And then lastly, we're going to do an open session. Just, you know, bring a question, and we will try our darndest to answer it for you. Okay. All right. So let's just talk a bit about our board and just some quick introductions, especially to our new board members. So Gavin, thanks for joining. You're now co-chair on the board. You're, you know, no surprise to anybody after you've left NetSuite that you would want to be on our board. And you have a wealth of knowledge and everything to pass on to our membership. So thank you for volunteering that as well. And we have Brandon, who is new with our co-member chair, and also Paul in our speaking chair role. So we've really rounded out our board. And what we're hoping to do is really start to make some good impacts within certain areas. So it's not all on a couple of people to run our board. We share the responsibilities, and we're working on growing our membership right across. And if you do have an interest in becoming a board member, please, you know, message Gavin and I, and we'll chat with you and see if there's a good fit for you within the board. So before I go to that next slide, so Gavin, I think I'll go back to the agenda. You know, if you're ready to take this on, go for it and talk about the manufacturing and distribution module, and just let me know when I'm to tag in.
Sure. I guess I should share my screen.
That would help.
See if I get this right. Okay. Do you guys see? There we go.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. Let's see if this works. Let's try that again. There we go. You see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I have a bit of agenda, but you know, I want to try. I have a bunch of slides, and then I'll show you some of what we're doing at TrustCore. But I want to also just try and give you as much of my background knowledge that I have accumulated over the years. So I joined NetSuite in 2010 as a basically a solution consultant, sales engineer, demo person. My background's all been in manufacturing. I did an apprenticeship in Scotland, a pump manufacturer in production engineering. So I kind of learned it all from the shop floor up. And then ended up getting into the ERP side. And I'd actually talked to NetSuite a couple of years before, like 2008, they reached out to me. But they didn't really have a manufacturing vertical at that point, so I really wasn't interested. A couple of years later, they reached out again. They're like, hey, we have a manufacturing vertical. We need some more people who know manufacturing. So I joined. And then within like a couple of years, I became like the industry principal for manufacturing. Ran the manufacturing vertical for a couple of years. And then ended up in product marketing / product management, or industry product management. And so I spent a lot of time working with customers and helping the product team decide what features to release. And then in July this year, actually in June this year, Dave Caputo, who's CEO at TrustCore, I knew from a previous lifetime, reached out, and they had selected NetSuite for TrustCore. I didn't know anything about TrustCore at the time. And he persuaded me to come on board. So I'm director of IT and business systems at TrustCore, focused right now primarily on NetSuite. We're not live yet. We'll be live in the next probably 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully, with the help of Lisa. And so that's kind of the story. In terms of TrustCore, so we're building a materials science company. So we're trying to build sustainable building materials with the eventual goal of replacing painted drywall. And so I will have to show you in a second a couple of different things. So we have a bunch of different products. Most of them are PVC based. And so we have, so this is, there's wall and ceiling board you put on your wall and your ceiling. There's also like a slat wall product that looks like this. And so you can put it on your wall and you can hang you can see that you can hang like your bike and accessories and stuff on the wall, etc. So, and so right now it comes in white and gray. You can get other colors depending on volumes, etc. The real thing that gets people intrigued or got me intrigued is we have a huge investment in R&D. And so one of the products we're working towards is right now it's called digital paint. The idea is that you put these panels inside these PVC panels inside your house. Right now the panels are 16 inches wide, they interlock, so your walls become waterproof, etc. But the eventual goal is that we're actually going to build a coating on top that will actually change color. So you'll be able to put these panels inside your house, bring up an app on your phone. There's a controller that runs like a low voltage through the wall, and then it will change the color of the wall. Then you take the voltage away, and it stays that color until you change it again. So that's kind of the long-term goal. It's still a ways away from being available and as being a commercial product, but that was kind of what got me excited. And so that's why I'm here. So and so when I joined, they'd already selected NetSuite. They had a NetSuite partner that they chose that will remain nameless for some reasons. And they'd also selected some other add-ons, etc. And so I came in and started to look really at the manufacturing process, and our panels are right now are all extruded. So you have raw PVC compound goes into a machine, it gets forced through a die, and then it comes out in these long panels, and we basically cut them off in different lengths. And so when I got to TrustCore, we had the whip and routings module. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But really, we don't even have a work in process. We go straight from the raw compound to the finished goods. So I'm going to walk you through some of what when I was at NetSuite, one of the things I did was do presentations to analysts as well, customers, analysts, whoever, to try and explain where NetSuite fits. So I've recreated some of those slides that, of course, I didn't have because I left them behind. But I recreated a couple of the ones that I'd created before that will hopefully explain the different modules and where they fit, etc. So we'll talk about where NetSuite fits for manufacturers, what different editions are available. Costing is a big thing, and then beyond just core manufacturing, we'll talk about some of the add-ons and stuff, and then I'll actually walk you through some of the things that we're doing in our sandbox account, and a couple of things that I've recently discovered that are kind of cool. If anyone has any questions, just yell or raise a hand or something, and I will try my best to answer. So what is the best fit for NetSuite for manufacturers? I put a version of this slide together probably 8 years ago, and so from left to right, you're going and focusing on method of manufacture, which is when I was with NetSuite doing demos and talking to a prospect. As the first thing I'd ask them was, what's the method of manufacture? Do they make to stock? Do they make to order? And you kind of hope they don't say engineer to order. And so the best fit for sure with NetSuite is products or companies that make to stock or forecast, basically the same thing, or make to order. Beyond that, I've always said that that the best fit for NetSuite for manufacturing is companies that make fairly simple products with fairly simple bills of materials that you make lots of. The other end of the scale is where NetSuite doesn't always fit well, is if you make really complex products and you only make them once. And so that's over on the right hand side here, engineer to order, or a continuous process, because NetSuite's all work order driven. So as long as companies is okay working with work orders, then it can be a fit. There's always caveats, and I'll get to that in a second. So make to stock, make to forecast, or make to order, simple bill of materials. You might use supply planning, forecasting. Oops, look at that. There's a spelling mistake there. Terrible. And then you might also use supply allocation. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And so that's kind of that's probably the best fit. So simple products you make lots of, and you may have a forecast for it. And so there's not a spelling mistake. Look at that. CPQ. Terrible. So okay, so then you go into reasonable fit. And the only difference between best fit and reasonable fit is, so for configure to order, you need a CPQ solution. So NetSuite has a CPQ now. That is they basically bought Verenia, which was a partner configurator. that I actually recruited, by the way. So they owe me some money. I'm still waiting for the check in the mail. And so that's there's two main reasons I have configured to order under reasonable fit, not good fit. So one is you need a partner product, you need a configurator. Two is NetSuite's best costing, and this ties back to why make to order, make to stock is the best bit. The simple bill of materials. If you're if you're running a CPQ, then NetSuite's best costing method, and we're going to talk about that later, is average costing. And average costing isn't necessarily the best for a CPQ company, because you're going to you have two options. You're going to use a standard product. You're going to then configure the bill of materials. You're going to sell it under different configurations. And those different configurations will have different costs. But then if you're using the same end item, then those average costs all going to be blended into an average cost for that item. You really lose the visibility of what a configuration is costing you. And so the only way around that then is to actually create unique items, which can work. And then you know what the configuration of that is. And people freak out for this stuff all the time about creating items, etc. But at the end of the day, it's pretty easy to disable items in NetSuite after a period of time, and then they will they'll just disappear unless you explicitly go looking for them. So that's kind of the with the configure to order. And then there's batch process. So I have over here continuous process being not ideal. Batch process, NetSuite had a lot of success with selling to bakeries, etc. And that's because of advanced manufacturing, which was a partner product that I ran the acquisition of about 8 years ago. And so advanced manufacturing kind of helps with that. But we'll talk more about advanced manufacturing in a minute. And I don't want to give away too many inside secrets at NetSuite yet. But we'll talk more about that in a second. So again, it's a reasonable fit because yes, they can do it. There are some challenges with advanced manufacturing that we'll get to. Then we get to stretching it. So these are, because I don't work at NetSuite anymore, I could get a little bit more creative with the descriptions. And so stretching it is so if you're a project-based business, or you maybe are design and install, then you can do it. There's NetSuite it's not a standard bundle yet, but they have like a standard customization that lets you use the projects module, and then link work orders, etc. to it. And so really get into that. The biggest, and so what they're trying to do here is, if you go back to the whole simple bill of materials thing, with NetSuite, you can have the bill of material. They have the advanced BOM, which is great. Nobody should be using the old BOM. The old BOM is going to go away eventually anyway. So the advanced bill of material. But when you create work orders, if you have sub-assemblies, so you're making larger products, more complex products, there's sub-assemblies, etc. In systems that do this well, you can release the sub-assemblies individually. With NetSuite, you basically have to release the entire work order at once. You can't go and say that you have you want to release this part of it and then continue working on a different part of the BOM or the work order, then release that separately. You release the entire work order at once. And so the only way to really deal with sub-assemblies is to have separate work orders and then link those to a project, etc. So NetSuite has a standard customization for this. A bunch of partners also have standard customizations for that. So you can quite easily use projects to manage different sub-assemblies or different parts of the project. So you make a good example with design and install is like custom signage. So you make the signage, but then you have to have a work order or sort of project to have somebody go out and then actually install it. And so there may be multiple tasks and that, so you use the project to roll all those costs up. And then if you go to the not ideal, then engineer to order. So basically just the extension of what I was just talking about. Engineer to order would be making something really large and complex that you're only ever going to make once and you're never going to make again. Yes, there are NetSuite customers who use NetSuite with projects and some customization to make all that work. So even though I'm saying not ideal, if you're an engineer to order company and you're using NetSuite and it works for you, then great. But generally speaking, that's kind of the lay of the land in terms of methods of manufacture and how they might fit in terms of standard NetSuite functionality. I'll pause there. Any questions? I see Lisa shaking her head, so thank you, Lisa. Okay, cool. So that's kind of the high level lay of the land. I used to present this to partners, and to try and help NetSuite partners understand where the fit was. Green, of course, is good. Yellow is so-so. Red is not so good. And so along one axis, less complex products to more complex products. So underneath that, complexity of the bill of materials. On the left-hand side, volumes of transactions, less to more. So if you make a really complex product and it's more, and it's so if engineer to orders up here, make to stock is down here. This is kind of CPQ and those other things. So just a different way to look at it. But sometimes the visualization is a little bit easier. And I would present this to the NetSuite BDRs and new sales reps and stuff to try and help them understand, because everyone wants to know who the perfect customer is, or manufacturing customer is for NetSuite. So this is to try and help them understand that. Okay, so when I say additions, this actually isn't. I'm not sure additions is the right terminology, because there are different NetSuite additions for their Suite Success editions for different things. Really, what we're talking about is what they call the manufacturing stairway. And so there's really three different, technically four. There's technically four, but officially three different editions or different configurations of manufacturing that you can get with NetSuite that you pay for. Maybe that's probably the easiest way to describe it. And so actually, maybe at the end, Margie, if you're still here, Margie called me the other week asking about, she was so her company had I think assembly builds and the ability to create work orders without being charged for it, and suddenly they were being asked to pay for it. So I've been chased to find out what's happening with that. So so if you have advanced inventory in NetSuite, then you can do something called assembly build. So it means that you can create a bill of material, and then you can create an assembly build, which basically goes and instantly converts the raw materials into finished goods. And that's basically what we were doing, except we're doing it with work orders. So if you don't need a work order to plan production and that sort of thing, then you can just use assembly builds. So if you're like assemble to order, that sort of thing, or even make to order, and you're just assembling some common components, then you can use that. When I joined NetSuite, this was called light manufacturing, and And I should kind of tell that story quickly. When I joined NetSuite, they had an advanced manufacturing module that was actually a partner solution called Rootstock, which you might be familiar with. Rootstock is now built on the Salesforce platform, so they're a Salesforce partner, and they're a Salesforce partner because I kicked them out. Because I joined and they'd basically taken a version of they basically had tried to build like a Bond, which is like a 1970s ERP system, and they plugged that into NetSuite without understanding how NetSuite actually worked. And it was the only time I ever worked with a product that crashed the browser when you tried to use it, which is quite an incredible feat. So when I joined NetSuite, this was called light manufacturing. So I joined NetSuite. I'm going through the ramp to learn NetSuite. I'm getting super excited because NetSuite's got a great CRM system. It's got it's a great support system. I was really excited about having the e-commerce side all built in, etc. And then I got to this partner, the advanced manufacturing solution, and it was just, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. So every time I did a demo, I was actually working at a time with John Than, who owns Efficiency. He's the one who started at Efficiency. He was my boss at the time, and so every time I did a demo, I would build the routing capabilities and the resources and stuff to be that I thought they should be built. And so after 6 months, we actually had a working version of something that could replace the advanced manufacturing using native NetSuite functionalities and some custom records. And we ended up selling that to a couple of customers. But that was just key in persuading the development team at NetSuite that we could actually build it ourselves. And so that was the genesis of WIP and routings. So this was called light manufacturing. Now it's called work orders and assemblies. You still have the bill of materials, but you can basically create a work order. There's no labor. There's no way to control labor. If you want to add labor cost, then you add a non-inventory item into the work order, and you just set up unit of measures as hours or whatever you want to do it. Put your standards on the BOM, and then you'll get the labor cost at least as part of the product, but no real resource planning. Or so I thought. I'll show you what we're working on. And so you basically have your raw materials, you get your bill of material, which ends up being your work order. You create you do builds, which creates finished goods and transfers all the cost. So, and then you have WIP and routings. It's just where you can actually add, if you have multiple steps. So in our case, again, we're basically going from raw PVC compound to panels. There's really only one step. So if you have multiple steps in your process, or potentially more complex costing, and or maybe outsourced manufacturing, that sort of thing, then you want to create the operations, which are your routing steps, the resources that are required to create them, the setup and run time, so how long it takes to make it. That's going to add some cost, and then you end up with your finished goods. So when they built this feature, they actually piggybacked off of the project task record. So the operations are actually are kind of linked to the project task records in the background. So if you buy WIP and routings, you actually get advanced projects because that's why you get advanced projects, because it uses the project task record. And so you got your operations, your resources, etc., and it adds all the cost. And so when I joined TrustCore, this is what we had. We ended up actually turning this off Because when you do a build, to create finished goods in this, you basically have to go, and it adds a few steps, which if you need those steps are fine. We don't. And so you create then a completion, but then you have to there's a completion, but then there's you have to complete the work order or close the work order, and then there's a separate process to go, and once the work order has been complete, there's a separate process to go and review because all your costs go into BIP, and then there's a separate process to go and review all those costs before they actually end up in inventory and then eventually in cost of goods sold. So there's like multiple steps to go through, and for us it didn't make any sense, but it works perfectly fine if you do need it. And so we've actually turned this off. We've gone back to just using work orders and assemblies, and it works fine for us. In terms of the customer base, so NetSuite has, you've probably also seen the LinkedIn post to say they have 33,000 customers now. So it's pretty much split 50-50 between products and services. So about 50% are products industries, so manufacturing, distribution, retail, etc. The other 50% are services, projects, software, that sort of thing. And so, but if you were to look at usage of the different editions within the NetSuite customer base, this work orders and assemblies is probably about 60 to 70%, I would guess. WIP and routings is probably in the 20%-ish range, and advanced manufacturing is probably under 10, is probably around 10% of it, if that. So the current advanced manufacturing, somebody raised their hands. Who wants to ask a question?
Oh, that's me, but I can wait till you're finished with the stairway.
No, you got.
Okay, this is Margie.
Hey, Margie.
Regarding the bottom level, you said that, and maybe I misheard you, that that's advanced inventory, but we have advanced inventory, and they're saying, if you want assemblies with multi-level components and assembly unbuilds and inventory tracking of finished builds versus subcomponents and work orders, then you need to buy this additional module in addition to the advanced inventory called NetSuite work orders and assemblies mid-market.
Right. So assembly builds lets you do a build without a work order. In theory, you're meant to have it sounds that you ended up with the work order functionality, which you're not really meant to have. That's part of this work orders and assemblies module. But you can do straight up builds without work orders and assemblies. You can create your bills of materials, you can convert them to finished goods. You just can't create a work order to plan for doing it.
So then do you still need advanced inventory? It sounds like you could just buy work orders and assembly builds without buying advanced inventory. That just seems like
I think they're layered. So I think you have to. I think when you buy workers and assemblies, you get advanced inventory, or you have to have that to get this. You have to have work orders to do WIP and routings. You have to have WIP and routings to get advanced manufacturing. They kind of layered.
Yeah, but if you don't want WIP and routing and you just want this bottom layer, you still have to buy advanced inventory and NetSuite work orders and assemblies.
No, you could just have advanced inventory and not have work orders and assemblies.
Ah, okay.
But you can't do work orders. You can do assembly builds. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the
You're welcome. And then there's advanced manufacturing. So you'll notice the thing that's not really shown here is scheduling. And so with different routings, there's actually there's a bundle called the supply chain management. I think it's called the SCM management bundle or something like that. And it adds a few different things. It'll actually give you like a Gantt chart with drag and drop capabilities. But it doesn't really do any scheduling. It really does infinite capacity scheduling. So there was a partner called Acuity that developed this this add-on that added rough cut capacity planning, so finite scheduling, some downtime tracking. They had a tablet app for capturing labor, and I'm not really sure what this continuous improvement means, but that's so. So this was a partner called Acuity that then NetSuite bought, and renamed it Advanced Manufacturing again, just to make everybody even more confused. So so this has the biggest disadvantage of that right now is that they basically NetSuite bought the advanced manufacturing tool, and it works great. There's customers who use it. There's a little bit extra maintenance involved in setting up and running it, I guess, than something would like. So those are kind of the three levels, and plus the bottom one, which isn't really a level. The cool thing though is that these are all subsidiary and location specific. So you could have, well, once you add advanced manufacturing in, it kind of takes over some other things, but you can have workhouse assemblies and whipping outings, and you could have in one location, the whip setting is location specific. So you could make the same product in two different locations in different ways, have it just use workhorse and assemblies in one location, and then turn on whipping outings in another location, and kind of layer that functionality on. So that's kind of the way that all works. Any questions? Don't see any questions. Yeah. So when do you use assembly builds? So you use assembly builds if you are you have for light assembly, and you don't have any variability in your bombs. The caveat to that would be, if you have workhouse assemblies and whipping outings, your bomb becomes your work order becomes your assembly build, and your assembly build is what goes into inventory. I think I see a chat there. Okay. And so, but I think though, even with just doing assembly builds, even though you can choose the quantities, so it will default to the bomb quantity. And so in our example, one of the things that we do, so we have the compound that goes to make the product. We also take our scrap product and we regrind it, and we put it back in stock at a lower cost, and then we reintroduce that into the manufacturing process, which means we can lower our costs. And so what we do is on our bomb, we would have the virgin compound item with 100%, we're assuming 100% consumption of that, and then we'll have the reground scrap item with a quantity of 0, so it lets you have a 0 quantity on the bomb. And then when you do the build, you can go back in and you can change the actual consumed quantity, and you can do it after the fact. So that's actually what we'll do, because when we create our products go into skids of 150 panels, and then so we make 150 panels, they go into a skid. Our plan is to then weigh the skids, so we know what the target weight is for our product, but it varies depending on how the line's running that day. So then we weigh the skid, and then we're going to go back and we're actually going to adjust the quantity of material that was consumed based on what was actually on that skid. So we'll get the actual cost for the panels on that skid. So you can do it after the fact, as long as the period is not closed. So that's assembly builds. If you have workers and assemblies, you need work orders. Why do you need work orders? You need to tell people what to make. So you have a traveler that you might want to print off. Your work orders components might vary. So if you're configured to order, custom, that sort of thing. Funny story, actually, when I first joined NetSuite, you couldn't actually change the components on a work order. It was the work order materials were a direct replica of the BOM, and you couldn't change them. So that was one of my first enhancement requests. And so simple assembly process doesn't take too long. Again, in our case, we have raw compound going in, we have finished panels come out, so we don't have it. We are accounting for labor cost overhead in the BOM itself. They've released actually this awesome tool called Manufacturing Mobile that is free right now. And that lets you a site. You can, so now with that you can actually assign a work center to the work order, and then on a mobile device you can have someone in production actually record production, which is kind of cool. And so the vast majority of customers are on this method. Not you again, Margie. Yeah.
Very simply, how do you account for your labor? Do you use a service item, or do you use pardon?
Right now it's a non-inventory item.
It's a non-inventory item. Okay.
I think I played around with, I'm not sure if Lisa has anything to add, if she's got any experience with that. You can use non-inventory items, service items, service charge items. Initially I set up other charge items, but then that I couldn't add that to the BOM. So I think there's some unique, there's some idiosyncrasies, but basically, yeah, one of those item types you can use to add the cost to the BOM.
Yeah, we use inventory, but that's because it's a contract manufacturer that we get billed from. So I was just curious. Thank you.
Okay, so when you use whip and routings, you just track work in process. So the longer it takes to make your product, again, for us, it's instantaneous. So there's no whip. The longer it takes to make your product, then you probably need to track work in process. So ballpark, if you can make your product within a day, you probably don't need, or even a couple of days, you probably don't need WIP, because the only time WIP's really important is at the end of the month. So if you can make, if you can create a work order and you can finish that work that day, you probably don't need WIP. It's only as the manufacturing time takes longer, then you probably need to track work in process, which is the labor and the materials that you invested in the process before you get any finished goods out. And so it definitely gives you more granular level of costing, because you can create multiple costing templates and stuff. More complexity. I'm like a keep it simple guy. It might give you better material management control, because you can issue the materials into the work order. Again, that just goes into it. And then there might be multiple operations that it goes through. You might have an alternate routing, so you might normally make it this way, but then make it on a different line, and it might have different costs. That's that sort of thing. And then you might, it also gives you more visibility into what's happening with the work order, the interim reporting, so you know if the work order is extending over multiple days. And then there's doing the work. This again, there's a definitely more complex completion process as well. But that can actually be a benefit. I actually like the way that they did the costing on this. If that's something you need, we just don't need it. And then if you add advanced manufacturing, so if you're using it, it'll do like a rough cut capacity plan. It technically does finite scheduling, but it's not overly complex. It's pretty simple. And then they also have like a tablet, but again with manufacturing mobile, you can use manufacturing mobile with work orders and assemblies, or with whip and routings. It won't track actual labor, but it will let you do completions. And then some of this is actually from a SweetRolling presentation, so I just borrowed it. And so yeah, it's if you need advanced manufacturing, you need it. If you don't need it, then don't go there. Okay. And so one of the biggest advances that NetSuite's made over the last, well, since I've been there. What's the time, by the way? How long do I have, Mark?
I think you're still good.
I have like 15
Another
minutes.
15,
Yep.
20 minutes.
Okay.
Correct, 15,
I
we
guess-
plan to 11, yeah.
I guess I talked a lot. Okay, I'll try and get through this part. So one of the biggest advances that they've made over the last few years is on the planning side. And so, you know, we had something NetSuite. When I say NetSuite had something called demand planning. It was just terrible. So they've launched something called supply planning, MRP. So this is a huge improvement. You know, they actually hired a guy, a product manager from Oracle to run this project. And so I came up with this slide a bunch of years ago. So we still have demand plans and forecasts. You still have forecasts rather. And so the idea behind that is to say, you know, do we have the budget in place to take advantage of our long-term opportunities? Margie, if you want to do long-term planning, you probably want planning and budgeting. I have some other thoughts about that, but we'll talk about those later. Or there's the new NetSuite Analytics Warehouse. And then when you get into the mid-range planning, so then that's where MRP is going to take over. It'll compare all your demand and supply, tell you, you know, it'll basically say by location, tell you what you need to make. And so the idea with that is, you know, making sure you have the right products in the right place at the right time to sell. And then there's this supply allocation that I actually like. Some people don't, but there are some caveats, but I kind of like it. So basically it runs, and it's going to try and allocate the inventory that you have, or the future inventory that you have, or the future inventory you're expecting to the customer orders based on some parameters. So you can allocate, the default is it's going to allocate to optimize on-time delivery, but you can allocate to optimize profitability. So if you have limited supply, you can choose which orders to supply based on profitability or to optimize revenue. And so my biggest complaint about supply allocation is that you can't just go and manually enter an allocation. It's trying to do it for you automatically in the background. You can tell it to reallocate, but I can't go in and say, I can't go in and edit the allocation record and say allocate 500 from this work order to this line. And so that's my biggest request for that. We'll see if that ever happens. But it does not a bad job. And then they have that Analytics Warehouse, they have the control tower dashboard, they have intelligent predictions and simulations, etc. that kind of layer on top of that. So this is kind of the way that I see planning in NetSuite. And so the way the allocation works is basically, we create an order. We have automatic location assignment. In our case, we have ALA running to tell us which location to supply from. It then goes and allocates it. And then we go through planning, production, and fulfillment, etc., and ship all that. Costing in NetSuite. Average costing is by far the most used. There's standard costing works, but it's huge overhead. You can only have one cost. You can't go and create a cost and say change the standard cost on June 1st to this. You actually have to on June 1st rerun the costing and change all the standard costs to that cost on that day and time. And then the other one to be aware of is specific costing. So if you're in a configure to order environment, so specific costing we'll track the cost by lot number or serial number. Be very, 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 very careful with that, especially if you're doing specific costing with serialization, because what happens is if you were to go back 2 months, say, and or I've seen customers do it like 6 months back, which is stupid. Go back and change a receipt cost. It's going to go back. The costing engine is going to try and go back and recost every transaction from then until today, which it'll do anyway for every cost for average costing too. But it's going to try and do it for every lot or serial number in that time period. So huge burden on the system. So be very careful with specific costing. So average costing is by far the easiest way to go. And then and Mark's going to talk a little bit about I think inbound shipments and landing costs, etc. On the mobile side, so NetSuite's made great advances with the warehouse management. They specifically targeted gaps between NetSuite WMS and RF Smart. Hopefully there's no one from RF Smart on the call, but there you go. And so they've made huge advances in NetSuite warehouse management. We're actually implementing it right now. The NetSuite calling tablet, again, they've made great advances in that as well. A little bit complex in the setup, but works really, really well. Manufacturing mobile I've talked about, so you can actually issue materials, etc. Pack station lets you go and then consolidate orders and palletize and that sort of thing. Then the one that's not on here is we actually started to use already is Smart Count. And so there's a Smart Count app that is that makes cycle counting a lot easier as well. So this is actually this is what manufacturing mobile looks like. To record production, WMS, I might actually show you some of this as well. The quality tablet, so it'll tell you different tests to do, and you can actually enter test criteria. One of the things that we're using this for is to do a pre-shipment inspection. And it actually prompts someone to go and take a picture of the left side of the truck, the right side of the truck, and the back side of the truck, so that if it arrives and something's damaged, we know what it looked like when it left. So you can actually have them do this with a tablet and have them prompt to take pictures of different parts of the product, etc. And then they're also releasing more and more suite apps. And so these are some of the ones that are available or that are coming soon. They're not always easy to find because you can't go just and for some reason you can't just go and see the NetSuite developed suite apps. And you have to access the Suite App Store from your NetSuite account to be able to see the NetSuite suite apps. If you go to the suiteapp.com, the NetSuite suite apps are not listed. And then last but not least, I'm not really going. So, you know, there's been a big change in NetSuite. NetSuite used to, when I was there was a sales team for every vertical. There was account managers for every vertical. They've really gone to products versus services approach, accepting professional services. They still have manufacturing, distribution, etc. rules within that too. Okay, so let me just show you a couple more cool things. So we have really simple products. Some of the things that we've done is I added a product specification tab in here. So we're tracking the length of our products, the color of the products. This is actually eventually going to end up being fed to the extruders in our production line. And so in the distant-ish future, NetSuite will actually tell the machine how long to cut, how long the panels are, and then that will actually the machine will go and cut based on these dimensions. And then we have some other parameters that we're going to be tracking in there. In terms of our scheduler, I talked about planning. And so this is
Gavin,
yes.
on the last screen, the consumption unit of measure.
Yeah.
Is linear feet like a conversion within that 10-foot 5-inch?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're doing is our units of measure are basically eaches. So this is a panel that's 10 foot and 10.5 feet long. So we basically record production by panels. But then this should actually probably be pounds, because the only way we'd ever consume this is if it's scrap, then we would basically convert it. So but yeah, that's a conversion. So our units of measure. We basically have a unit of measure for every length. And we actually just so there's the, and so this we actually just changed this. because the primary unit of the base unit measure is what you record, you record production by. So here we go. It's actually going to be eaches. So we're going to have each as our primary unit measure, and then linear feet as linear feet in pounds as alternate units to measure. And then so this is the MRP engine, or the result of MRP. And so we have 3 locations, so you can go and actually and filter the results by that. And then for every item, so if I was to go in here and look for a specific item, then it will show me the major components that go into it. It gives you the time phase view of demand and supply, daily, weekly, or monthly, so you can see how many you're going to have on hand, etc. And then there's your firm planned orders, actual planned orders over time. And then you can simply go and click on supply, and it's going to show you your actual work orders and your planned work orders. And so you can basically just go in here. If you agree with those, you can either firm them up first, or you can just go and say, oops. There you go. And say release, and that will go and convert those into actual into planned orders. So so you basically you'd have different views of this screen for probably manufacturing versus purchasing, or that's the way we're going to do it. And so you can have workbench views. And so if you're somebody, so we actually make our own raw compound. So you might have someone who has a view with just the compound materials versus somebody who has a view of all the other finished goods. And so we actually make this product in Calgary, and then we ship it to our other plants. And you can do that through supply planning, because you go and set up planning rule groups that says, if there's demand in this location for this product, then supply it from Calgary instead. The work order, really simple, but you see here there's this work center is now being attached. So we have a planned quantity and a built quantity. We're recording scrap through a custom record. And so we are recording scrap separately. We're importing it into NetSuite on this record here. This is just a total of the reported quantity, but we get a scrap reason, the weight that's being scrapped. You can add comments, and then once a day we're doing a script that goes and does an inventory adjustment, and then the actual adjustment will be linked back to the actual scrap reason, so we'll be able to tell why we did something. And so this work center, actually, this is the mobile app. And so if you're going to manufacturing mobile, it defaulted me to Palmerston. I pick my work center. I pick my shift that I'm working on. And then you basically go and choose which work order you're working on. And then this is where you would go in, and you can actually go and issue components. We backflush everything. So if you actually were going to do consumption, you can actually go and record the consumption of the product, or you can go and record production. And the nice thing about this, by the way, is that there's actually a user called an MES user that I created before I left. That is a fifth of a cost. So it's like an employee center user. And so you can, if you have someone who's just using manufacturing mobile on the floor, then they can do it for a fifth of the price of a regular user. And so there's your actual production, and then that would be recorded real time in the system as well. So kind of a nice little free add-on. And then the last thing I want to show you is something I just found. This is actually a partner app of a company out of Sweden. And so it's actually a Kanban board. And so our scheduler wanted to, so we're good with supply planning. It's going to tell our planner or scheduler what to, how many panels to make in each location. But he basically schedules like a week at a time. So he wanted like a graphical view, and if he needs to basically go and adjust. So this shows you the work orders, but you can actually go and drag them. And you'll see if I move them around that the dates will change, and that actually updates the schedule date on the work order as well. So I'm still playing around with this. If anyone's interested, I can let you know. I can send you the information about the partner that created this, but I think it's kind of neat. And it's good enough for what we need anyway. I think that was the last thing I was going to show. Actually, I'll show you this quickly, because so we have we're going to be recording builds. We're going to go live. There's a lot of concern about are the bill of materials accurate and that sort of thing, which is a valid concern. But if you think about it, especially in our case, so we have the BOM becomes the work order becomes the build. The benefit of NetSuite is that as soon as you record production, then you're going to get the total cost. So I can calculate the cost per panel, the cost per linear feet. I can compare it to the average cost and the last receipt cost, and show like a variance. And so as long as we're monitoring this, and we will be monitoring it like all the time, we can basically go in here and say, oops, that's obviously wrong. Click on edit, change the, look at what was wrong with the build, make a note about why it was at the bottom that was wrong, or did somebody just enter like 5,000 instead of 50? And then quickly go and keep track of what your costs are. And in our existing system that we're going to be from, our costs basically all come from the bill of material. They don't come from the work orders. So this is going to be like a huge step forward for us as a company anyway. Okay, I think I'm 5 minutes over. Sorry, Mark. Did you want to?
No problem, Gavin.
Any questions?
That was really good. That was a great overview, Gavin. I learned a few things, even though we've been on NetSuite for 3 years. Yeah, good.
We also like that you're no longer with NetSuite. You can really tell us where it fits and not.
Shh. Yeah, I know.
If you know Gavin, though, he would have done that.
I would have done that anyway.
At that time as well. He likes to guide. He likes to guide his customers and partners in the right direction, right?
We try.
Yes. All right, that's awesome. So why don't I'll save my landed costs and I'll roll that in with my Danby profile or the spotlight, and let's move to Brittany. Are you ready?
I am.
And Driven Technologies sponsor today.
Yes, and let me go ahead. Screen Cap is joining me as well. He is our Vice President of Sales. I believe he is on as well. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I am working remotely, so I am hoping my internet stays.
Your screen is showing just
All right,
fine.
can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Awesome.
can.
Great. So I'm just going to go through a high-level overview today of our product that is built natively within NetSuite. I've taken screenshots just because I feel like internet could be unstable. So after this call, if you want to see a longer demo and I can actually walk through it with you, I'm happy to do so. I'm going to tell you really quickly just who Demand-Driven Technologies is, and then really walk through what our product is within NetSuite. So with that, our headquarters are in Atlanta, Georgia. We have an office over in France. We really are working with manufacturers and distributors across the world. Here are a few of those names. I will say a lot of our NetSuite clients have fallen in the food and beverage consumer space. So we have our native to NetSuite product as well as a standalone product. So this is a mix of those clients, but always happy to send over case studies about specifically our NetSuite clients, just like to highlight how well our solution works across multitude of industries. So with that, we are completely native within NetSuite. There's no integration needed, which is always, IT loves that. And we have our materials planning module. This is our base module, which I'm going to highlight here in just a minute. And then we also have an S&OP module. So taking your forecast, blowing that forward and showing future projections. And highlighting this, these are the metrics that we are tracking for our clients and trying to achieve right out of the box, as well as what they tell us during an implementation is what they're trying to achieve as well. So how can we maintain or improve service levels? How can we better optimize our inventory? And then really within our NetSuite space, it's very easy to read, it's color coded. I know where I need to focus, spend my time, prioritize my day based off of that color coding. So the way that our system works is we look at not just the forecast reliance, but truly what is our consumption? How can we get the most accurate planning signal? And that's using actual demand. So we typically look within one lead time, taking into account our actual demand. So we know what will be sold and when we need to order or make it by. We have ways to incorporate the forecast, but truly on a day-to-day business, we're using a consumption-driven planning method. And I'll talk about that here in just a minute of how we do that. So what we do is we apply what we call buffers to parts. So really our made to stock parts, our regular reoccurring demand part, we apply what we call these buffers. And these buffers flex up and down just a little bit on a daily basis in response to demand. We are setting up these buffers. You don't have to do that analysis at all. You know, where does it make the most sense to apply these for the parts that we are trying to keep in stock? And the buffers have 3 zones, again, that flex up and down just a little bit on a daily basis, but we're taking into account your MOQ, if you have an order frequency cadence or an average order size that you have to take into account, we'll adhere to that. We're taking into account a rolling daily usage and your lead time, and then also taking into account variation. So we're assigning your buffer settings to these parts during the implementation. And then you get a signal for these parts whenever what we call this net flow line drops into this yellow or the red zone for the buffer. So in this example, what you can see is the buffer resizing itself on a daily basis. And I'll show you an actual part where this is happening here in just a minute. But you get a signal when you log in using what we call this net flow equation. And it's just really simple math. We're just adding and subtracting supply and demand. So on a daily basis, we're adding on-hand inventory plus open supply. We're subtracting all demand due today or in the past, or what we call spikes. So these are larger orders we want to take into account early so they don't cause a stock out position. And then again, whenever that net flow line drops into the yellow or the red zone against our buffer, we get a signal that we need to place or make an order to get that net flow line back up to the top of our buffer. And then this plus sign down here, that represents our inventory position. So you can see it's fluctuating just a little bit on a daily basis as well. So truly planning to what's actually happening to each item in the marketplace, not just that forecast reliance.
So I'm a huge demand-driven MRP fan. We actually, a bunch of us in NetSuite got certified as demand-driven planners years ago. And I wanted NetSuite to build this. And to me, like the best thing about it is it demystifies it because it's all based in math, right? So, and you'll see the visualizations a little bit later. Actually, in NetSuite, you can see this exact type of graph, and you see exactly where your on-hand quantity is as well. So it's super simple. I'd love us to do it eventually. So
yeah.
Sorry, Brittany.
Yeah, no, thanks, Gavin. I love that. So again, I'm going to go through some screenshots here of what this looks like in NetSuite. Didn't want my internet to cut out. That's why there's screenshots. So when we first log into NetSuite, I mentioned that color coding, and this is my workbench. I've filtered in this screenshot down to one planner at one location. So I'm filtered on Frank at the plant. Because we're native to NetSuite, really, it's easy for us to pull in other search criteria that we may not have on here. Just pull over that save search, add it to a filter, and you could set up your daily flow how you would like. But on my workbench, this is color coded. So I know right away when I log in, I need to take care of everything that I see in this red and the yellow zone. Green is go, don't need to check on it. And then what you can't see in this screenshot is blue. So that's actually where we're over the top of our buffer. So we're not going to recommend, placing another order or making more because we want to work through that inventory position. So I come in here, I can see I have my recommended reorder quantity. I have what's on hand, what's on the way to me, my demand for this part. So I have my snapshot of what I need to concentrate on for the day. Something I do want to call out, if I go over here and I look at this buffer profile, so you can see over here in the red zone, I have what we call non-buffered. So these would be my buy to order or make to order parts, or maybe parts that have demand against them through the year, but I don't really need a buffer against them. So we have ways that we can manage our different parts still within one system. I'm not having, go back and forth between native NetSuite and Intuit Flow. I'm still managing all of my parts. I still have all of my visibility in this workbench. Then to execute off of these, I would go into what we call our ARO screen, my accept recommended orders screen. And because we're native to NetSuite, this updates almost in real time, about every 15 to 20 minutes. So you're not having to manually adjust anything that you see on this. Once we take care of these parts, we're going to update. So we're updating these recommended orders for you. And if I take care of these parts today and I place my order against them, when I log in tomorrow, these would be in that green zone. So I don't have to, continue looking at them until they fell back into that position where now I have a signal against them again. So on my accept recommended orders screen, you could see here I filtered down to Frank at the plant. I could plan by replenishment type, by vendor. If I wanted to plan by product family, anything like that, you have the ability to do that. And so on this example, I've gone through and I've started clicking on some of these. So I've pulled over those parts that are in that red and yellow zone. As I click on them, they turn to green because I'm taking care of them. It populates my automatic or that recommended reorder quantity, part type, my preferred vendor. So we do set up your preferred vendor during the implementation. And if you want to change the vendor, if I get a discount from this vendor, or if Tim Hardware is having supply issues, I would just click the drop down and I could change my vendor that I want to replenish from. I could also, if I am planning for this part in 2 locations, I could change replenishment type to transfer. And then I could just choose where I wanted to transfer from and transfer to. So really easy to make any changes that I need to on this screen. And then up here under my order details tab, we'll consolidate your same vendor purchase orders, work orders, or transfer orders so that you're not sending multiple POs to the same vendor. And we do have some group planning functionality as well. So if you want to, or if you do plan by pallet, truckload, container, we would also take that into account on this page. And if you make any changes from the recommended order quantity, you can automatically see the new order value totals as soon as you do that. So once you've gone through these and you've clicked on them, made any necessary changes, just come up here and you click generate orders, and then it will link up with your NetSuite ordering process. So some of our clients want to leave notes before they firm them up to send them to that vendor. So you could certainly do that if you want, or you could have them on auto approval. There's a lot of functionality here of how you want to firm up these orders within your system. So that's really, I come in here, I take care of my parts in that red and the yellow zones for the day. This is going to update automatically for me. I'm not having to manually pull anything. I could export this into Excel if I wanted, but I can use this to speed up my planning and purchasing time. We also have alerts. So instead of getting an email or talking to a colleague that every item's hot, what are we going to do? We have these alerts. They're sorted by priority. Again, these are updating for you. I'm going to talk through the 3 types of alerts that we have. So this first one, this is a current inventory alert, and this is saying I stocked out of this part on this day because of this sales order. This is the next available supply order to expedite to get myself out of that stock out position. So I can leave a note on this, I can email it, download it, send it out, leave a note saying, hey, I checked on this. This is when I can expect to receive it. When I have gone out of that stock out position, this is going to update. I'm no longer going to see this part in my current inventory stock out alert. The next alert is a material synchronization alert. And this is saying I will stock out on this date in March because of this sales order. I can avoid that stock out position if I expedite this purchase order. So this is saying I will stock out due to the timing of when supply is set to arrive, the demand that I need to fulfill. Can I expedite this and avoid a stock out position? Could I maybe call up a vendor and see if they have this supply available so I avoid a stock out? Just more visibility into a potential challenge. And then the last one, this is a projected stock out. So whereas before we're saying you will stock out on this date, this is saying you are highly likely to stock out on this date in the future. I might want to monitor these parts over the next few days, week or so, see if I will need to take an action, get ahead of the event before it occurs. So those are the 3 types of alerts that we have. And we're pulling this over. We're looking at your supply and demand, that timing, your lead time associated with this, the preferred vendor that you have on these. You're not having to manually update anything. We're truly doing that for you and the prioritization for you on this page. I'm going to go into 2 different types of parts now. So this is really at a high level. This would kind of be my day in the life. I check my workbench, I execute, check my alerts. Do I need to take care of anything? Those parts that I was talking about earlier that have the buffer applied to them, this is what it looks like in NetSuite if I look at an individual part and I've pulled a purchase part and a part of the bill of material. So this is a view of a part. It has the buffer assigned to it. I have some item master data that we've pulled over from your item master. Your item master, that is the system of record. That is where we're pulling this information from. I have my buffer as it stands at a point in time today. When I log in tomorrow, hopefully I've taken care of this part because I see that net flow line is in the yellow zone. So this would look different when I log in tomorrow. That net flow line is in the yellow or the red zone. So that's why I have a recommended signal here. I want to get that net flow line back up to the top of my buffer. I also have visibility into my on-hand inventory as it stands at a point in time today. So I have 45 units of this part on hand. This blue dot in here, this would tell me my expected average inventory. How much can I expect to have on hand at any given time? So again, just more visibility into this. And then down here in this part activity, this is telling me what's driving that net flow line into the yellow or the red zone of my buffer. So I have my running balance. So as I fulfill these sales orders or work orders against this part, what will my inventory balance be, as well as when I am supposed to receive my supply and the quantity of that supply. So we are pulling that over from that item record. And then, talking about how this buffer updates in response to what is actually happening in the marketplace. We've planned based off of the actual demand for this part. And this part analytics is telling me how this part has performed over the last 6 months. That's what I'm looking at. So I can see here in, we're looking at last year. So in March of April of last year, my buffer was a lot thicker. The demand for this part began to fall off. So the buffer shrank in size. It picked up on what was happening in the market. The demand for the part was falling off. We don't want to get stuck carrying too much inventory. So it's shrinking in size. If we were to see the demand for this part grow or become more frequent, we would see the buffer begin to thicken in size and tell us, hey, we need to order more, carry more inventory because the demand for the part is growing. The purple line, this is my on-hand inventory. So I can see over this time period what my inventory position was. So I see I get a little high here of how much I'm carrying. I still never get over the top of my buffer. I get a little low here while I was waiting for supply to arrive, but I still never stock out. So I have visibility into my inventory position, over the last 6 months. What was my expected average inventory of this blue line? I could see, did the planner follow the recommendation here? So a lot of information I can get from this part analytics view, and I can also pull this at a higher level. So all of my parts that are buffered, I can see how they have performed over the last 6 months in a report that we call our buffer trend graph. Looking at a part that has a bill of material, so it has a buffer applied to it as well. So you can see the buffer up here, but what I really wanted to concentrate on was this bill of material. So again, we're setting up this bill of material from your item master record. I can see my finished good up here at the top, FPA, it has that buffer, that's what I see over here. I can see all of the components, subcomponents that are going into making FPA, as well as which parts within this bill of material have a buffer already on them. So when I have to make FPA, I should expect to already have PPC, PPB, these parts on hand. The parts that are in gray, these would be my buy to order, make to order parts. So I know whenever I want to make FPA, I'm going to have to wait for these to arrive. I can see if I already have them on hand. And we have 2 different lead time here. And what this is this is my lead time while I am waiting. This is my actual lead time to receive this part. I have a 10-day manufacturing lead time to make FPA. So that's why my Intuiflow lead time here is actually 35 days, because this is my longest part that I have to wait to receive. So during the implementation, we would work with you and say, where does it make the most sense to apply these buffers? Every business is different. We want to customize this to your business goals, ensure that our settings are correct. So where does it make sense to apply these buffers? Could we buffer a cheaper component, cut down our lead time to the customer because now we're folding a cheaper component within the bill of material? Don't need those on all of our parts, but again, truly going to work with you to align to your business goals, your settings, and ensure that all of this looks correct before we even went live. And how can we help respond to customers faster, where these buffers truly make sense, or the min-max setting, or order make to order part. When I place my order for FPA, we'll take into account your order min, maximum, multiple. So all of your ordering parameters, we are going to take those into account. We'll also blow that demand through the bill of material here. So I will place my recommended orders for all of these parts that are needed in order to make FPA. We do have that functionality as well. I know I've covered a lot. I know this concept can be newer for people, talking about these buffers, the settings, going off of actual demand versus the forecast. But one of the things that we do for all of our clients before they've even purchased at no cost is we run a simulation. And kind of the beauty of this being native to NetSuite is it's a suite bundle. It's just 2 save searches to run this simulation. And once we get that data back, what we can show you is, had you been using our system for the last year, here's the parts we would recommend buffering. Here's how the buffers would have responded.
Hello?
So you would see your actual demand throughout the year down here, how the buffer would have responded in your inventory position.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So in this simulation, you'd be able to see, what is my aggregate service level? What are maybe my problem parts that I've had over the last year? What would those service levels have been? Do we show inventory increases or decreases? How many times would I have turned the inventory, and when would I have placed those supply orders? So you're really able to see, what is my potential ROI here without spending a dime. Again, we do this analysis free of charge for all of our clients, and you can really see, is there a business case? Where do we recommend placing these buffers, and really talk through what DDMRP is with you. Where does it make sense within your business? Because not every part needs a buffer when we want to align with your business goals, which is why this is such an important of our process. I know I have covered a lot, so want to stop there. I will send this out after. I can also set up a longer demo and really dive into some of those concepts or walk through this simulation analysis with you. But any questions, anything you want me to go back and cover on this today?
Brittany, this was excellent. I had no idea that you were that in depth on the demand and the forecasting and everything. It's awesome. It's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in love with it. So
And
Yeah,
Brittany,
and-
if you send us the slides, we'll also post this up with the recorded video in the members only section. It was really well laid out.
Great, great. And then talking about that SNOP module, I know it scares people when we don't talk about, oh, we're not going to heavily use the forecast, but in our SNOP module, again, native within NetSuite, what we would do is instead of using a historical looking view of the buffer, the SNOP module takes your forecast, blows it forward, and then it says, this is how your buffer would look in the future if this comes to fruition. So, what are potential promotions I need to plan around? Maybe where's a stock out I'm projected to have within 3 months? Can I get ahead of it? So that's really where we incorporate your forecast and have a lot of functionality around that as well. And that is all I have for today.
great job, Brittany.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
I
great.
will
Thank
Stop
you.
sharing and then turn it back over to you guys.
So yes, thanks again, Brittany, for doing that, and Chris for also being here too. Appreciate it. Good to see you again. It's been a long time, and yeah, this is great. So, and if anybody is interested, we can get Brittany's information. Maybe Brittany, you can put it into the chat on how to contact NetDriven. Okay. Okay, let's move on to our customer spotlight, and we've got about half an hour left. So I'm going to try and spend about maybe 20 minutes on this and 10 minutes on our questions and stuff too. So Danby Appliances. So we are a Canadian manufacturer / distributor. A lot of our products are made overseas. We do have some manufacturing here in Canada and the US. We have assemblies as well in both countries, but we have 400 employees, 6 locations, 2 in Canada, 4 in the US. If you don't know who Danby is, chances are you've seen our products in hotels, dorms, university dorms, our small fridges. We've maybe used our air conditioners, dehumidifiers. We have air purifiers now. We have wine fridges. We have the whole gambit as to value products as well as high-end built-in type products as well. We have 3 subsidiaries, so Danby Canada, Danby US, and Microfridge US. We went live on NetSuite in late 2019. That was for Canada. We went live there first, and then in the US, basically Jan 3rd, I think we went live in 2020. And if you remember 2020, March, that's when the pandemic hit. Thank goodness we moved off an on-premise ERP system and went to cloud. Made us much easier to work remote and be dynamic. And, it was good that my team didn't have to, focus on our ERP and making sure that everybody had access and VPN and everything else set up. It was super easy. We just concentrated on getting, say, Microsoft Teams, Office 365, all of the other things that keeps our businesses running during a pandemic. Our renewal date is, and I thought I'd throw that in, we're December 2025. So a little ways out, but we are working towards that. And I'll talk more at the end on the what's next and why we're doing a few things to work towards our renewal. We are One World, NetSuite license. We have a sandbox. We also have 6 developer accounts. I don't know if that's included in sandbox or not. And actually, just in the last couple of weeks, I figured something out. I was the only one that had access to those 6 developer accounts. So I was the only employee in there, and I just took it for granted my 2 developers had access to that. And what those developer accounts is, it's a plain, no data in it NetSuite account that a good developer could see. How does NetSuite natively function? Because when you're troubleshooting, you don't know, hey, is it one of our many customizations that's making something not work? Or is it native NetSuite? It's a good testing ground. So until I actually went into those developer accounts, assigned the employee, gave them access, and they had access to those developer accounts. But think of it as additional sandboxes if that's what you have. Okay, we have 5 Suite Cloud Plus licenses, which works out to a concurrency limit of 65. We increased that after we went live. Our business, because we're so strong in some of the home comfort, air conditioning type season, dehumidifier season, our sales kind of come along, as we kind of get into spring, and then all of a sudden we're super high in the number of orders a day. Like we will jump on a Monday after a long weekend in the summer to 8,000 orders to fulfill that Monday morning. That's a huge spike and a huge pressure on NetSuite to push through all of those transactions and all of our automated processes to not get blocked, not slow down. So we had to increase that concurrency limit. And just a side plug, the APM tool in NetSuite is fantastic for finding out, what your concurrency levels are, and if you're going over, are you getting blocks? Are you having slow save searches or slow workflows, slow scripting? We could do a whole session on the APM, and I think maybe we should, somewhere down the line. I've listed off all our add-on modules. We have quite a few of them. I won't go through all of them, but I'll call out, we did opt for light manufacturing. We didn't go advanced, just because we're not totally in the manufacturing business. We do have the work orders, assembly builds and stuff, but we didn't have to go as far as making sure that resources and scheduling and all of that was included into our NetSuite environment. And you'll see a few things. Well, I probably won't demo it, but that we customized for our manufacturing specifically for one product launch that we did. Okay. Number of active products, we have 1,800 active parts, 13,000 of them, lots of parts. It's fantastic that we have that many, and we have a really good online website for all of those active part sales as well, direct to consumer. We're using inventory, assembly builds, and group items. We opted to go to group items and not kits, based on NetSuite's recommendation that when you go kits, you lose some of the visibility on your profitability. So we opted to go with group items. Don't know if that was a good decision or not, because group items are really tough to deal with.
Yeah, what happens with kits? So there's 2 things with kits. One, you can't edit the components of a kit. So the kit's the kit, that's it. But then all the sales revenue goes to the kit item that you sell, and all the costs goes to the components of the kit. So you then have to do some fancy journaling after the end of the month to align the two. So that's the issue.
For sure. And I think if I had an ideal world, I'd try to move off group items and make them assemblies.
Yeah.
And just deal with it that way, since it's seems to be a better flow of dealing with items in NetSuite. In 2022, I just ran some quick numbers when I was doing up the slides. 1.6 million transactions in NetSuite, 250,000 sales orders, big volumes. It's a lot of little transactions too. We have 8,000 inbound shipments, and the way that we treat our inbound shipments, every inbound shipment is a container. So it's on the water and it's coming here, it's getting loaded onto rail and then coming to a distribution center or one of our customers directly. So it's a lot of inbound shipments, which is why we really focused on getting our landed costs correct in NetSuite when we went live. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. We are using average cost, what Gavin was pointing out. We do have serial number scanning, but we are only doing this outbound, not inbound. And the main reason there is we want to track outbound. We sell appliances. We need to know where that's gone. So we're tracking the serial number. Where's it gone? If there's a case against it or a return against it, we can track quality and tie all of that back to the serial numbers in our inventory. Reverse logistics custom solution, because you deal with, say, the home comfort. Everybody's probably bought something from Costco. You've probably returned things from Costco. They have a very open policy on returns that, we're not going to get that changed. And it's our decision to continue to sell to Costco. So we have to deal somehow with the amount of returns that come back from a retailer like that. So we built our own customized solution that we call reverse logistics. Every product that comes in as a return gets looked at, inspected, tested, and we built a whole suitelet for that goes through all of those stages that the technician is doing on the line, and then NetSuite, the suitelet, decides whether or not that product should get scrapped, it should go to scratch and dent, it needs to be remanufactured, or there's nothing wrong with it, just rebox it and we'll sell it as used. So we have a whole process that does that, and also all of the transactions to move that inventory to the right locations in NetSuite too, and also adjust the costs. Because when you remanufacture something, it comes in the back door, it's a return, we write it down to 20%. Then we goes through the process. If it's scrapped, it gets written down to 0. If it goes to a scratch and dent, it might get written down by 80% of the original value. And then we pass that savings on to our consumers. So we built a whole complex solution around that to help with the flow of those returns. And we're doing continuous improvement on that too.
And Danby has an awesome outlet store. If anyone's ever been there.
Thanks for the plug, Gavin. We have 4 of them, and drop by if you're in the area, in our Guelph area here. We have one in Calgary, as well as our Ohio office, and also Tulsa, Arizona. We are using Shopify. We want to get off Shopify. We looked at NetSuite, but because we're dealing with many locations, because you come to an outlet store, you could buy a brand new product, or you could buy a scratch and dent product, you could buy an as-is product, you could buy a remanufactured product. All of those are different locations. It's tough in NetSuite to be able to sell on the same order. I bought this new from this location, from a scratch and dent location, and an as-is location. So on the same order. So we've been really having issues with that, but we have a solution in the works that's coming real soon. Doing business with pretty much everybody that sells appliances, all the national chains across Canada and the US. We have independents, mom and pop type shops. We have a direct B2B business, which is primarily through our microfridge division, which is selling directly to hotels, as an example. We have servicers that service our products, that buy parts, and then we also have some consumer business. You can buy some products directly from us, but we want you to really have that experience with our customers. And we have a lot of active customers as well. Okay, what does my MIS team look like? I have 3 help desk employees, 2 NetSuite admins. I would probably be in that number. I have web integration / developer. They are also doing some NetSuite scripting as well for us, as well as web and then any third party. I have 3 EDI analysts. EDI is a big part of our business in dealing with a number of transactions that we do with the majors, those national accounts. I have 2 system administrators and 1 project manager to keep us all on track. I do have consultant contracts, and I thought I'd include and just share that with you. I've got NetSuite ACS team. I used to have more hours. I think it's 30 hours a month. And I found I was using them all, but not really in the ways that I wanted to. So I reduced our use for the ACS team to 15 hours a month and have them focused more on performance. So, every month we kind of look at, okay, is it sales order? Is it the purchase order? Is it the vendor bill? And try to increase, like, where's the slowness? Can you bring somebody technical on, an engineer from NetSuite to actually go through and help guide us to what needs to get done? And as well as best practices, because as you know, NetSuite keeps on changing. And we have to keep going back and asking the same question as to, well, has there been an improvement in this area? Because we have a customization, but I'd love to bring it back to native NetSuite. So we use them for that as well. App Efficiency is our primary consulting partner. We have 50 hours a month with them. It's primarily script development. And I'll probably move some of that to our 2 web developers as they gain, their skill sets within NetSuite as well. But again, they've been with us. They came in halfway through our implementation. So I've been dealing with Johnny and his team for 4 years now. So it's a great relationship. Third parties used, I got it plenty. And probably won't go through all of them because it's a lot, but it's good for you guys to know, because if you have questions on specific ones, ask us. So, and I'll put you in touch with the right person to answer some of those questions. But for our EDI, we brought it in-house and we're using Dell Boomi to do all of the transactions. So we build the process flows and everything in Boomi that connects to each of our customers. We have, I think we're up to 88 customers on EDI right now, and still climbing. So it's a lot. RF Smart for our warehouse and inventory management. PaceJet, it's been a solid partner for parcel type shipping. They were also a partner for us with truckload shipments, but they just weren't getting there with rates and how to load rates, especially in Canada. How do you rate shop in Canada with postal codes? Do you load all the postal codes? Postal codes don't have ranges. It's hard to do things with postal codes. So we've opted to go a different direction. We actually signed on with Cubics, and then we went live. And the day after, Cubics said we are sunsetting the Cubics truckload rate shopping solution. So we are now getting off Cubics and replacing with another partner in the US called Habit 5. Great partner. And they're helping us build direct connections to each of the carriers that we use. And we use across, US and Canada, probably about 60, 70 different carriers for truck delivery. So it's quite a complex solution, but we've got a good handle on that with that partner now. Sorry, demand driven, but we're using Demandcaster. That was something that we looked at our go live as well. I wish I would have saw your product at the same time. We would have made a challenging decision, but we should talk for sure. For sure, Chris, okay?
Can I make a brief statement about that?
Yeah.
So I don't really view Demandcaster and some of the other demand planning products as competitors. They can be absolutely, if you pick one or the other, meaning you're going to drive your planning entirely from the forecast. We're seeing a broader picture where customers have the forecasting for longer term view to apply against the operating model that work in conjunction with this. So I guess I can be a competitor if you pick one, but there's a phenomenal story to be made for having both and having a bigger picture, using the forecasting for longer term and us in the operational window. But I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but I knew that point would come up as soon as I saw that.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. Thank you. So I won't go into the rest of them, but again, the slides will be there for you and you can take a look and ask questions, but we've got a lot of moving parts here at Danby, that's for sure, with the emphasis on automation. So because of that volume of transactions that we deal with, we need non-manual processes in NetSuite. Okay, let's talk landed costs for a sec. And when we talk landed costs, so we're buying, let's say, our products overseas from a number of different countries that we source and have them bring in the parts, and then we'll do assembly here. But it's very important that we have the correct landed costs when it comes into NetSuite, because it's average costing changes and fluctuates and all. So it's important that we have our shipping charges, our freight fees, where's the origin or destination, any import duty fees. We have the joys of some tariffs against our products, right? So, and that with the previous US administration was changing a lot and really caused, a lot of different price changes with duties. Obviously, taxes, insurance, handling charges. So how do you do all of this? And some in native NetSuite, they've tried to solve this with cost categories. And you can do that, under the accounting list and cost category, but it's very simple. So if you've got a simple import of products, like the same type, the same duty, like it's very fixed, then it will work very well. You can create these landed cost templates. And, it's funny because I don't know if NetSuite changed a lot of this and if landed cost templates went away, but I could not find where I can create the template, but I can't find where I map it. So where you're mapping it to individual items. So when you purchase that item, it goes to that cost category and then brings it in. Well, that's great if you're sourcing products from one country that has one duty rate. What happens if you're sourcing from many countries and have many different duty rates? And we do this on the fly, right? So based on, look at our supply chain over the last couple of years. It's been a challenge getting products here. We've had to buy from different sources, set up different sources, set up new locations because of these tariffs. So we had to be dynamic to adapt to some of that, where if you've got an easy flow, you can do it in native NetSuite. Purchase order is generally driving a lot of that landed cost, and you can do it on the line item, but it ends up executing on your item receipt. So you have a landed cost tab there, and it's funny because you look through some of the instructional videos and they all show you, well, you just, add your landed costs, and if they change, just open your item receipt and make those changes before you receive the product. How can you do that when you're receiving thousands of products a day? You just cannot manually do that. If you're a small operation, and you don't do this on a regular basis, absolutely, you can do it in NetSuite. And again, the landed cost tab, one of our limitations was the cost allocation method. You could choose one. So how do you choose one when you have duty, which is based on the cost of the product, and you also have a freight cost to bring that container in? You need it distributed by all of those products. So which one do you pick? You can only pick one. So it's a challenge, and was a challenge for us. So it's very manual, not many choices for scenarios, and the multiple combined costs. But again, if your business is not complicated, you can do it native NetSuite. So what did Danby do? So same issues, right? We have all these costs. We created different fields and put them into the general preferences, like our finance buffer, a standard broker cost that does not change. It's just that it's a fixed cost that every time we clear customs with an inbound shipment, it costs X dollars. And it was different by subsidiary. So we have 3 different fields there. Very, very simple. Okay? Then we created dynamic shipping costs. So we know it's an inbound shipment. It's coming from this port and it's going to land at this port. So in NetSuite, we created a custom record that looks at going to this port costs us X dollars. It also takes us, say, 45 days, or it's 50 days. It's dynamic as to which port it's leaving and which port it's arriving in. Then we loaded all the duty costs on the item. So on your item, you'll have what's called an HS, or harmonization, right, code that is given to your product, and that is uniform across many different countries. But then the percentages change depending on your origin of your product. So again, we created a custom record there, tied it to the item record so that we had a good lookup with all the duties. We also put effective dates on there. So we could future forecast what our costs are going to be at a certain time when duty was changing. And we took all of that information on the right, put it into a script that runs on the inbound shipment. So on the inbound shipment, and there's different costs there. I looked at, say, a standard DC shipment coming in, it may have all of those costs. If it's an FOB, well, the customer takes responsibility for the shipment at our factory. So we don't have the shipment cost. It's on Costco, it's on Walmart, it's on Best Buy. So we could eliminate, the dynamic shipping costs, and that is done on the inbound shipment. So every time an inbound shipment is touched, like created, updated, it recalculates what the landed cost should be as the settings are today. And then on item receipt, it just overrides the cost. So whatever the PO cost was, that's native NetSuite, it overwrites that with the landed costs, all of these factors from the inbound shipment on a per item basis, and put into NetSuite, and we receive it at that price. So, and the GL on the item receipt is split out for all of those different landed costs as well, so that we are accruing and can look that up after for reporting. So we created a solution that's, it's more automated, it's dynamic, it's accurate. There's no changing of things. There's settings that need to be done. And we're just constantly improving. Like our dynamic shipping costs are now being tied to vendor bills. So it's more of an accurate cost on shipping. Whereas, the last couple of years, we kind of had it as a fixed cost per container. But, the last couple of years, container prices, I don't know if you guys know, but $5,000 was the price, bringing a container before the pandemic. And we went up to, I think it peaked at $22,000 to bring in one container. Can you imagine $5,000 to $22,000? Who's paying for that? So our consumers are paying for that. That's why our prices all go up. So, and we're seeing some of that coming down, but will it ever get back to that 5,000 before the pandemic? I will guarantee it will not. A few things that, we've done a lot of work and customized work, and I've listed out a few of these things here. If you're interested in going through any of them, well, let's do it. I put a couple of screenshots in. We have a web app that's running on Android tablets that's fixed to our forklifts that drive around, and that's our pick list. So we have them picking, they bring it to a staging area, and then we have these mobile carts, and at the bottom, you'll see a big battery that gets charged every night, and mobiling, around the warehouse and on the staging area, printing shipping labels and applying them right then and there, scanning the serial numbers on the products as well, right there, all, via a laptop. And it's a great solution. And now we've deployed, I don't know, I think we're up to about 40 of these mobile carts across our 6 distribution warehouses. So a huge gain, because, when you think about it, who are you competing against? Or who are you rated against? You're rated against Amazon, who ships like same day and same day delivery. So we've had to, because we also sell through Amazon, we want that good shipment. We want to be on their preferred list of sellers. And that's how you get there, by streamlining things and doing things outside of, but inside of NetSuite. A lot of automation happening. Okay, what's in store? Just a couple of things. KPIs are huge right now. It's that time of the year. We need to come up and put all of them into Power BI. Interesting, Margie, I think you brought up before about pricing. We do have a pricing tool. It's primarily outside of NetSuite that does that predictive costing, but we need something in NetSuite that, takes into consideration, yes, our landed cost, that's the easy part, but the other costs, cost of doing business with the customer. How much marketing are we doing? What are their payment terms? Do they pay on time? Is there an additional cost there? How many reps are assigned to a customer? All of these softer costs should be in with your pricing model and your pricing tool. So we're looking at building that out right now, probably going to be a Suitelet. Gavin and I sat in on a presentation at Suite World where NetSuite is working on something that is going to be more advanced in that area, you know, for promotions and everything else, and do more of that costing, but we haven't seen it, the updates yet, but maybe that's something that we'll be interested in. And of course, the reduction of costs. And the big one is CRM in NetSuite. Running, and I feel I'm hitting my head against the wall trying to get CRM in NetSuite kind of working or tweaked enough that we're doing enough CRM that it's a challenge. It's a challenge for us, but I think we've almost beat it, and be happy to do that and show you that walkthrough later on. So that was a whirlwind, and I know we're over time. But the slides will be available. You know, everybody should know my email address. It's on our website as well. Drop me a line if you want to talk about a certain topic. We've done a lot of customizations at Danby. We've got a lot of scripts happening, a lot of neat things. Again, thank you for demand driven. Awesome. I don't have our next date. I believe that it's in May, and somebody speak up if we picked the day for our next session, and I'll update the slide. Anybody have that? No? Okay. Okay. And then, you
I
know,
believe it's May 18th, so I was muted there.
okay, good, perfect. Thanks, Terrell. Yep, I'll update the slide with that. Ask a question. So I know we don't have that much time, but I have some time that I can stay after the meeting. No problem if you guys want to tackle this session.
Yeah, the number one, I think you figured it out. The number one piece of advice I always told customers when I was with NetSuite who asked about customizations and stuff was, you can't cheat the costing system. So you have to figure out how to feed into the costing system. So the people that get in trouble are the ones who try and cheat it and then realize afterwards that the costing engine always wins. So by doing your customization and adjusting your add and receipt, then that's where the actual cost comes from. So good job.
Thanks. Took a while to figure that one out before we went live as well. And then some tweaks after we went live. Margie, you have your hand up. Do you have another question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So I'm back to that question I was talking about before the meeting officially started. And I know you're working on something, but I just want to know how other people are addressing this right now. First of all, we don't have the option. We do use landed costs, but we didn't turn on the option to include that in the, what was it, the last purchase price? Was that, is that the option? So the goal is to be able to figure out how much do we, basically set the price for our distributors and say, okay, for 2023, the price of the various instruments is X. And, other than going through and doing an assembly build, which is only looking at the average cost, so if you have a lot of inventory that you've collected over years, especially when we were struggling during COVID and we ordered, hundreds of thousands of the same part. How do we come up with a really good pricing module or model, I should say?
So the module that NetSuite offers is planning and budgeting.
Is what, planning and budgeting?
Yeah, NetSuite planning and budgeting. Which I think they've got the integration down a little better. I'm not sure, Mark, if you ever looked at it.
We did, and we moved away from it.
It's sold like hotcakes at the start. And then there were some issues with the integration. I believe the integration is a little better now. And so it can definitely do that, and it's got some things out of the box that help with it. But then, you know, beyond that, then there's, you know, Mark's got the Power BI. NetSuite has NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, which is basically Oracle Analytics Cloud, which is basically it's the same thing. But that's a bigger lift as well. So,
But how are other people that don't have these other modules, you know, if anybody's on that's manufacturing, how are you dealing with it today? I mean, do you just do an assembly build and see what it's going to cost, or do
I'm
you
guessing they do it in
export?
they do it in
What?
Excel, but who knows?
Yeah. So you just kind of look, what do you do right now, Mark? Do you just export your latest,
Yeah.
your costs, your latest costs, and then,
We have a few things. So yes, it's outside and it's a massive file that keeps track of future costs, because you can't necessarily update your cost right now in NetSuite, right?
Right.
If the
Right.
customer was to order 100 of them and I don't have any in stock, what's my next price? So we're actually moving towards an automation around that, where a buyer can put in what the future cost will be, and then have the same scripts that run on the inbound shipment to predict what your landed cost will be at that time, and then bring in all of the sales costs, okay, at the same time. And that'll be, well, we've started creating custom records tied to the customer record on what that is, like the marketing accruals and, you know, the early payment discounts and all of that. We're factoring in return costs as well. So the more that you return to us, the more the cost should go up dealing with you. And basically running that as a simulation. So we're going to take the existing scripts and the existing logic that we have. And right now what we're doing is Gavin's right, it's in a spreadsheet, and you kind of forecast it, and somebody is updating, you know, landed costs on a daily basis right now with what that is, right? What the actual cost is. And then we give that to sales, who put in the forecast amounts for the customer and what quarter it's going to happen in. And then it basically runs that formula in the background and says, well, you know, here's the average, like if you want an average gross margin to this customer, this is the selling price. And then we'll take that as a spreadsheet right now and CSV upload that into NetSuite using the effective date pricing suite app, or yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
Not easy.
One of the standard cost limitations is you can't set a standard cost and say as of June 1st the sound's going to be a dollar more. It's just you gotta wait till June 1st, then update the standard costs then. So that would help. And then I guess purchasing contracts might help. Do you use purchasing contracts at all? Because I think you can set a future contract price. So that might help tie into it a little bit. But
yeah,
but
we use some contracts, you know, like for, you know, we'll say for 5,000 of
Right.
these, how much is it? And then do releases off of that.
Yeah, so that's part of, so that's there's a module called, I think it's called advanced procurement. And the biggest challenge with that is that the RFQ piece, you cannot update the price, the RFQ prices except through the vendor portal. So the vendor's got to go in and update the prices. But the purchasing contracts part actually works great. So if you can always have a look at that.
Okay.
So no clear cut answers for you.
No.
Sorry.
There's elements to it.
I was hoping someone had like something they had a safe search that was like, wow, this does work. So,
That'd be a crazy safe search.
Yeah, I think there's too many factors there. Unless you're creating like a custom record to group all of those together and then save search off that, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the NetSuite Advanced Procurement module that does have the the blanket purchase orders and the requests
Right.
for vendor quotes and stuff and purchase contracts. But okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I have one other area that's challenging, but I'll let someone else ask a question if they have it.
Anybody? I do see something in the chat here from Chris. Dynamic cubic volume. Yeah, we switched NetSuite weight. So the default weight in NetSuite for us, when we look at an item, it's in the cubic weight. So it's not traditional like pounds or kilograms. And then we created a custom field for the pounds. And so we kind of do it backwards because some of that landed costs and some of those factors were taken into consideration, whatever your weight was. So we just defaulted to cubic weight.
So you use the native weight field.
Yeah.
But put
That's
in a cubic weight.
Yeah, which was a challenge to get used to it at the start because everybody thought our weights were wrong. Because it's very different, right? Your cubic weight than your pound weight. So that's basically what we did, get around it. And I think that advice actually came from NetSuite's professional services on how other customers have done that too.
So are all of your landed costs then based on the cost factors that you put in? Do you do anything with actual?
No.
Yeah, the actual vendor bill?
No.
You just
No.
post those.
We're tying that in now as a continuous improvement, but we haven't figured out. It's difficult because the carriers that we're dealing with don't separate some of those line items that we can tie it to it specifically. So now we're going to connect to EDI with them, and we've asked them to put the bill of lading number, the master tracking number, on the invoices on the line level. So then we can then pull from those vendor bills directly to our costing.
Right.
And update.
Because the other limitation that people bump into often with the inbound shipments is you've got to pay some of those costs before you've received the goods.
Yes.
And so the whole matching of vendor bills.
That's us. We prepay it.
Yeah, I think anybody who's using inbound shipments is facing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you guys aren't actually trying to sell what your solution is to other people, because you've clearly come up with a solution that works. Everyone's in the same boat, and not everyone has the resources to have all these developers.
Yes. I would love to do that, Lisa.
Well, to recoup some of your
That's
costs.
a spin-off.
Yeah,
Gambi services.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Gambi
the
systems.
challenge there is supporting it, right? So
Yeah, that's the
got
that's the
50
issue.
customers on it. I can't be the tech support. That's a scaling thing, but it's the right idea, and with the right partner, we could definitely.
Yeah,
market it. Yep. And you're right. Everybody will have a similar issue around this. For
Yeah.
sure.
okay, productive session, guys.
Great. Any other questions before we wrap up?
I really like the way we did such an in-depth dive in one vertical, so that I think it was really focused for the attendees that are in that vertical.
Yeah, I really hope that was beneficial. We will put out a survey after the meeting to everybody that attended and get a little bit of feedback and some ideas for the next session as well. Okay, what kind of vertical would you guys kind of vote on the next one? Okay. Awesome. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Everyone
Thank
for
you.
attending.
Great meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.